Greetings, everyone. If you clicked on the link of this video, you either are A, researching the Appalachian Trail because you want to thru-hike it, B, you've made the commitment and you are going to thru-hike the Appalachian Trail, or C, somebody you know has made the commitment and told you that they're going to thru-hike the Appalachian Trail. The most common question that everybody thinks about and asks when someone makes the decision of thru-hiking the Appalachian Trail is just how dangerous is the Appalachian Trail. Today, I'm going to talk about the most common fears that hikers have out there. We're going to talk about the threats that do exist on the trail, and we're going to talk about all the things that you can do to prepare yourself to eliminate most of those threats from ever happening. Well, first, let me take a moment to introduce myself. My name is Rory Anderson. I live in Minnesota, and I thru-hiked the Appalachian Trail in 2016. For the folks that follow me and the folks that know me in the trail community, they know me by my trail name as Bigfoot. When you're out on the trail and you meet all kinds of different hikers, most of the time you are given another alias called a trail name. My brother gave me my trail name because of our love and passion for the mythical creature, and most of the time, folks are going to be given a trail name based on their personality, or maybe something smart they did, or maybe something dumb that they did. So, getting into it, what are the common fears that a lot of hikers have out there? Well, common fears are camping alone at night, hiking alone, being a female out there, getting attacked by bears, and getting lost on the trail. Now, those are just some of them, but those are some of the most popular ones that you hear a lot of people talk about. Based on your fears, questions are going to start populating in your mind, like, how do I protect myself out on the trail? Do I need to bring a knife? Do I need to bring a gun? How much bear spray do I need? How prepared do I have to be? Let's talk about these common fears and legitimate threats that do exist out there on the trail. I'm going to rank them from low to medium to high risk threats, but also I'm going to tell you how you can be better prepared to reduce the risk of that threat and be safer out there on the Appalachian Trail. Well, let's talk about low risk threats first. Common fears I want to start with is the fear of hiking alone, camping alone, and crazy people. Now, let's be honest, these fears are bred because you watched Deliverance, right? Right? Let's talk about reality. The Appalachian Trail Conservancy, or better known as the ATC, claims that 3 million people every year either day hike, section hike, or thru hike. The big bubble, the most common time that people are going to start their thru hikes, is northbound from Springer Mountain, starting somewhere between March 1st and April 15th. Now, if you have fears of hiking alone and camping alone, it is very easy to find other hikers out there that have a same pace as you and have personalities that you enjoy. So coming together and finding a group is going to be pretty easy, and that is really, really common out there on the trail. We call this a tramley or a trail family. It's very common that most hikers will hike the majority of their hikes with some big group. Now, on the flip side of that, if you are going out to the trail to seek solitude, it's very easy to do that. As a matter of fact, there are a lot of people that hike in groups that want solitude. So during the course of the day, they're hiking by themselves, but they have a predetermined location of where they're going to meet the rest of their buddies, and that could be a shelter, it could be a town, whatever it might be. But they want that solitude during the day. Now, as far as camping alone at night, if you decide that you don't want to do that, just stay at shelters. It is very rare that you're not going to have anybody at a shelter at any course of time during most of your thru hike. There was one day that I can recall during my entire thru hike that there wasn't one person at a shelter at night, and that was a shelter up in Maine. And that was because the water source was dry and everyone just avoided that shelter. Now, if you want to camp by yourself, it's very simple to do that on the Appalachian Trail. There are thousands of what we call stealth campsites that you'll find along the course of the trail. You can do that, and you can hike and stay at stealth campsites as much as you want if you just want that solitude and be away from people. So the fears of camping alone and hiking alone really don't exist unless if you want them to exist. Now, crazy people. The reality of crazy people is you have a lot better chance of encountering crazy people that are going to pose a threat to you out in the real world, being in your downtown city, even in your hometown. On the trail, the word of mouth travels really fast with hikers. We're a close-knit community. That word of mouth travels via talking with other hikers, because you're going to meet people all the time. And a lot of times you're going to know the people because everyone's pace is very similar after the first couple hundred miles. So the other thing that you're going to use a lot and see on the trail is trail registers, which are at shelters. And what those provide is they almost are like the social media of the trail. And people use those to basically let other hikers know how things are going, where they're at. So if you had a buddy that's in front of you, you know exactly where they are. But also, if there is some sort of threats out there, they're going to talk about that in those trail registers. But if you're hiking in a group and there's always people around, that really eliminates that threat. And a lot of it is just all the movies that you watch that has kind of just bred this fear in your mind. Mild threat number 2 is wild animals. First thing that comes to mind are, of course, bears. The fact of the matter is, you are probably going to encounter your fair share of bears throughout the Appalachian Trail. And for me, I encountered about somewhere around 20 bears during my whole thru hike. Most of them were in Virginia. My first bear encounter was at Laurel Falls, somewhere in Tennessee. I think it's Tennessee. But what happened was, I was hiking down the trail, and I actually caught it off guard. And when it saw me, it hightailed it in the woods. I don't think I've ever seen an animal move that fast before. And what I quickly realized was bears were way more afraid of you than you are of them. Now, this does not go to say that there can't be a situation that you put yourself into or you get into that you could have a threat of a bear. There are things that you can do that helps prevent those things from happening. First and foremost, be smart. Hang up your bear bag, your food bag, when you're especially at shelters. Bears are conditioned that is a place that they can go to get food. So it's really important that you are hanging your bear bags when you're at shelters, especially in the high bear activity areas like in Virginia. The other thing you can do is do things that make unnatural sounds that bears are going to pick up on and really avoid that encounter from happening. One of the things that I started doing when I got about halfway into Virginia was tapping my poles together every about 5 minutes. And that unnatural sound really gives the bears a clue that something is coming that's probably not from the woods, not from the trail. That will give them enough time to hightail it and get out of there. Now, bear spray. A lot of folks bring bear spray on the trail. Is it necessary? Almost every thru hiker that starts with bear spray usually gives it away somewhere in the first 3 states. That and camp soap are the most common things that you're going to see in hiker boxes throughout hostels and hotels and motels until you get into Virginia. Now, if you feel really uncomfortable with being on the trail and not having bear spray, I'd say bring it, but chances are you're probably going to get rid of it. And it's probably not necessary on the East Coast when you're dealing with black bears. Now, the other wild animal that poses a threat are poisonous snakes. Those are going to be your copperheads. Those are going to be your rattlesnakes. Chances are you'll probably encounter one on the trail at some point in time. What happens most of the time is when people do encounter those poisonous snakes, if they have a little notepad with paper, which a lot of hikers still carry that, they'll write a note and put it 50 yards before they saw the poisonous snake to let other folks know that there is a threat of a poisonous snake up ahead. When I saw my rattlesnake, I was hiking with another guy named Pacemaker, and when we came up to the rattlesnake, it went in its coil, and I don't think that I ever knew how loud a rattlesnake really was until I actually heard it. I mean, the rattle was really loud. So unless if you are really just not paying attention, have your headphones in and really not looking ahead, you should be able to avoid a lot of those things from happening by just, again, being aware. Well, the last mild threat that I want to talk about is the fear of getting lost in the trail or the fear of getting injured and not being able to have cell phone service to call for help. The reality here is the trail is heavily marked with white blazes that are painted on trees. And the only times that you might find yourself getting off the trail is by accident when another trail intersects the Appalachian Trail and you're not paying attention and you divert onto the other trail. Now, there are so many people that travel on the trail, and because of it being so heavily marked, it's very unlikely that you will be on a different trail for very long, because you'll notice right away because you won't see any white blazes. Now, there's a great resource out there that will help navigate you back to the trail in the event that you do get lost. I highly recommend it. It's called Guthook's AT Hiker. It's an app that's on your phone that can be used in airplane mode, so you don't have to have cell phone service. And with the functions of the app, it will tell you whether or not you're actually on the Appalachian Trail. So if there's any times that you're not sure what trail you're on, it will tell you using the features of the app, and it will tell you the direction of where you need to walk back to get back on the trail. So that's one of the great ways that you can help avoid this situation from happening. The other thing with getting hurt on the trail and not being able to call for help, again, there's so many people that are hiking on the trail, it's very unlikely that you won't have any people that will pass you. However, I do highly recommend bringing a GPS. I brought a GPS myself. There are 2 GPSs that I recommend. The first one's made by Garmin, which is the DeLorme InReach Explorer. That's one that I used. The features of that I really liked was the ability to be able to text my family, friends, loved ones without having cell phone service by basically using my GPS to help send my messages through and have two-way dialogue with whoever I was contacting. And then the other thing was folks, my loved ones, family members could actually track me and find out where I was at every hour, half an hour, depending on how often you want to set your GPS points, pings on your device to send. The other device I recommend is Spot. They're 2 different devices. I did a video about them. I'll put the video details in the link below if you want to know more about both of those. But between having Guthook's app and having a GPS, that really will prevent these situations from really happening, and again, lowering that risk to a very mild risk. All right, let's talk about medium level threats. Bad weather. Now with bad weather, it's usually the decisions that you make leading up to that weather that makes it even worse. Now, bad weather comes in all kinds of different forms. You're going to experience high wind speeds, lightning storms, snowstorms, hailstorms, rainstorms, you name it. The worst position that you can put yourself in is being exposed to the elements. The 2 things that come to mind when I think about this is being on top of a bald or being above tree line. Now, the balds are going to happen in the southern Appalachians, and being above tree line is going to happen in the New England section, especially the White Mountains. Now, you are probably not going to be able to avoid every single thing that Mother Nature is going to throw at you, but you can be smart by putting yourself in a safe position and not exposing yourself to the elements. Now, what I recommend is either downloading the Appalachian Trail weather app or going to atweather.org and save that on your home screen, so it's kind of like an app. And what that's going to do is those 2 sites are going to be able to help predict the weather by telling you what the forecast is upcoming. Now, if you go to an example, atweather.org, you just put what state you're in, and then you put what shelter that you are going to be at or that you're hiking to, and then it's going to tell you what the forecast is. That will give you a legitimate chance of being able to understand what weather is coming and make the best decision so that you are not being left exposed to the elements. All right, the last moderate threat I want to talk about is the norovirus and giardia. So the norovirus is a very real threat on the trail this year in 2017. What's happening is there are so many hikers out there, and when hikers don't have good hygiene practices, when it comes to them going to the bathroom and they don't do a good job with sanitizing their hands, it spreads these germs, and because of that, there's lots of issues with other hikers contracting the norovirus on the trail. Biggest things you can do, number 1, don't come into any hand-to-hand contact with other hikers, and you don't know how good their hygiene practices are, so you don't want to shake their hands. The other thing you want to do is, or not want to do, is share food with other hikers. Again, it's under the same lines of shaking their hands, so don't share food with other hikers. Things that you can do to help prevent the norovirus is, first of all, go to the bathroom 200 yards from the trail, and you always want to bury your poop. If you don't bury your poop, what happens? When it rains, it's going to wash away and it's going to go into the local water source, whatever is nearby. And a lot of times that water source is what we drink from, which is really important because then that's going to contaminate and affect the water, the drinking source. And if you're not using anything to treat your water, the chances are likely that you could get the norovirus. Now, when you get done going to the bathroom, it's very important that you have great hygiene practices and that you are cleaning your hands with sanitizer. I always brought wet wipes with me as well. So normally I would always use sanitizer, whether I went number 1, number 2, and depending on the situation, I always use wet wipes as well. So wet wipes are important out there. Some folks don't carry them because they're a lot of extra weight, but I'll tell you, after probably the first 100, 200, 300 miles, you start to realize that wet wipes are pretty essential out there and they're worth their weight in gold. And Giardia. If you get Giardia and contract it, you are going to be sick for at least a week, if not a few weeks. Sometimes this takes a hiker off the trail. The best things that you can do is to treat and filter your water. I always filtered my water. I see a lot of hikers these days that stop filtering their water, and that's just a big risk. I'm kind of psycho about my water and filtering it, so I don't think that's anything that I'll ever do, but you don't want Giardia. I've heard horror stories of folks that have Giardia and what it does to you and how sick that you feel. The other thing that happens a lot of times is the folks that are using the Sawyer filters, which is what I use out there on the trail, when the temperatures get below freezing, that what happens is the water that's still left in their Sawyer filter, they just leave it out and the water ends up freezing, cracks the filter, which basically means that Sawyer filter is useless. So when they're actually filtering the water, it doesn't do anything. And I know a couple people that actually contracted Giardia because of that. So headlines here is practice great hygiene practices, use sanitizer. I also love using wet wipes, and make sure you treat and filter your water. All right, let's talk about high-level risks. The first high-level risk is the scariest creature that you're going to see out there on the Appalachian Trail, and it comes in the size of a poppy seed. You know what I'm talking about here? Those are ticks. I did a whole video on just talking about how to deal with ticks in the Appalachian Trail. I'll put it in the details below. Check it out if you haven't seen it. The biggest thing that you can do to prevent having deer ticks come in contact with you and transmitting Lyme disease is by using a chemical called permethrin. I use permethrin on me during the course of my entire thru hike. Now, permethrin you will put on your gear, which would be your tent, your backpack, and all of your clothing. What you're going to do is you're going to apply the permethrin every 42 days or every 6 washes, whichever comes first. What I did is I actually applied it every single month on the trail. I think this is one of the reasons why I only experienced 1 tick on me during my entire thru hike. So permethrin is going to be the biggest defense in helping avoid ticks on the Appalachian Trail. Now, the next thing you can do is use bug spray with 30% DEET. You don't want to use 100% DEET because it actually will melt your gear. So 30% is all you need. And if you're applying that, that's going to help ward off not just ticks, but mosquitoes and bugs and everything like that. The areas that you have to be most concerned about with ticks are in the mid-Atlantic states. There's been some studies out there that suggest it's very unlikely that ticks are going to be above elevations of 1,800 feet, which makes the mid-Atlantic states prime areas to get the ticks because most of the time you're going to be below 1,800 feet. So using permethrin and using 30% DEET are going to be some of your biggest defenses against that. And the last thing you do is wear long pants, long shirts with a color that you'll be able to actually see the ticks. And what this will do is really prevent the ticks from getting to your skin quicker. Now for me, I just got way too hot out there, so I normally always wear shorts and a t-shirt, but there are some people out there that do wear long clothing to help prevent against that. And the last thing you want to do is make sure you do a thorough tick check every night when you go to bed. But again, for more details, check my other video out below. And the last high-risk threat is your own decision-making skills. If you have a history of poor decision-making skills that are unresponsible or immature, all the threats that we talk about in this video are all going to be higher risk. It's really important that you understand what you're getting into, you do the proper research of the trail, and understand all of the things that you can do to help prevent all of these threats that I talked about today so that they are lower risk. But in the end, what's going to matter the most is how you handle it by making really responsible, mature decisions. So, how dangerous is hiking the Appalachian Trail? Well, if you are properly prepared and make good decisions, you are going to be able to eliminate about 90% of the threats we talked about today from happening to you on the trail. Do I need to bring a gun with me on the Appalachian Trail? So that's a decision that you have to make. You have to do your research, and I will tell you that about 99% of the people that hike the trail, probably more than that, are not armed. I didn't bring a gun with me on the Appalachian Trail. If you want to know more about this, Dixie did a fabulous job on talking about this sensitive topic. I'll put a link of the video and my details below. But honestly, you probably don't have the threats that exist out in the trail that one would need to be armed for. Now, there are some people I met through this channel that have legitimate reasons why they need to bring a gun, whether it's because they experienced a violent crime or they had a horrific experience happen to them. But again, it's something that you're going to have to choose. And if it's something you do choose, make sure you know what the laws are. But again, I'll direct you to Dixie's video that talks more about that. So how prepared do you need to be to hike the Appalachian Trail? Well, honestly, you need to do your own research. I have done a variety of topics about preparing and planning for through hiking the Appalachian Trail. I will put the playlist link below, but you need to go out there and do your own research. I do highly recommend bringing a GPS out there with you, but the more research you do, the better planned and prepared you are, the more threats that you're going to eliminate. And all in all, I will tell you that the Appalachian Trail, from my experience, the risk of hiking it was very, very low. I had more risk, more threats to me living my everyday life back here in Minnesota than I ever did on the Appalachian Trail. Well, that wraps up this video, guys. I hope I was able to answer most of your questions on this sensitive topic. If there are any other fears that you have, would love to hear about them in the comments below. I'll do my best to answer them based on my experience. Or for others that have the same experience, please feel free to also give your input. Just a reminder, guys, all of the money that I earn on revenue during this video and all my videos this next month leading up to trail days, along with all the revenue that I earn on Patreon, I will be donating 100% to the ATC when I'm at trail days. So stay tuned for my next sighting. If you haven't had a chance yet, subscribe to my channel. If you liked what you heard today, like my video, and remember to always follow Bigfoot.